What is going on, everyone? Jay Bryan here, and I want to welcome you all to the L&D Insider Series, where I'll be interviewing other L&D professionals and hear their insights that are provided to help you all, other L&D professionals, do what you do best. So I have here an extremely special guest, very special guest. I had the pleasure of working with her um, at an event a few weeks ago called The Download that she puts on, and I'm sure she'll mention it and tell you all a little bit about it. But it was an amazing experience. I enjoyed it. I learned so much, and I've just been kind of watching this guest from the background and just learning from her, looking at what she does, getting tips, and she didn't even realize I was doing it. Yeah, but I have been, and she is amazing. So with that, I want to welcome Miss Megan Torrance. How you doing, Megan?
I'm doing well, Jay. Thanks so much.
Yeah, welcome. Again, I appreciate you doing this. I know I told her off camera, you all that are off recording. I said, I know you've been traveling, so thank you for letting me get on the schedule. So uh, first thing I want to ask Megan is, what got you to this? What brought you to this point in your career? I know your position. You're the, what do you call it? The
Chief Energy Officer.
chief energy officer, the chief energy officer of Torrance Learning. So that's where you are now. But what were some of the things that brought you to this point?
Sure thing. And I think we can define like this point or getting to this point in kind of two ways, right? Like one is what's the job history, and then the how did that happen? So the job history goes around. My college career was in communications and organizational development and business. I started working for one of the large consulting firms, Accenture, before they were even called Accenture, back when they were Anderson Consulting, back in the olden times, and really my work was around large scale shared service centers, and how do we build the processes, how do we support the people change, and that included a lot of training, and then how do we build the technology to support these systems in the mid and late 90s. My last project in that space was putting in one large organization's first learning management system in 2020 or 2002.
Wow.
And so early days of SCORM, their first learning management system, it was software company's first learning management system. It was my first learning management system. Like we were all learning everything, right?
Like, what is this?
And it worked, right? Yay, right? It worked. And from there, I started working for the learning management system company, right? And that was fun, right? So I get, small software startup. It's a company called LearnShare in Toledo, about an hour from me. And at one point, their clients started asking, as I'm out deploying their learning management system, hey, can you build the stuff that goes in this fantastic learning management system I just bought? Like, yeah, I can actually do that. I was trained to do that. I just haven't been doing that. And so that really the bulk of what Torrance Learning does, right? Our team of about 22, 25 people, most of what we do is develop content that runs in people's learning management systems. But we take a really holistic look at it because we're coming from the entire experience of connecting in with that learning through systems, through data, and then the actual content and how do I apply it on my job. So that's the job history way. The how. When you ask what brought you to this point, it's like, oh wow, it's people. People and connections and mentors and advice and people who scoop you up when you make a mistake and tell you you're not an utter failure. Like people brought me to this point in my career, and that's really that's how we connected, right? Around the download, which is a gathering of people that we've been doing since 2010 to share things. So yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. The download. Yeah, definitely. Cannot wait till the next one, whenever it is. I know you mentioned at the end of the last one, there might be go back to 2 a year. now.
So the download, so the download's this thing, right? I started out in 2010 with we ran it once. It was a half day. It was free. It was actually a potluck. Like we were so broke, like in our early days as a
Just
company,
bring food
right?
from your house.
It was free and potluck. Like, and people brought stuff. I mean, one guy brought a 6-pack of beer,
Yeah.
But it was that really that community building vibe that was super popular and really powerful. We ran it 2 times a year. We got to a point where shutting everything down and hosting an event twice a year, and it was growing and getting bigger, and we'd get 80 people into our office and stuff, and that was a lot. And so we dialed it back. So I immediately, that was 2015, I immediately then added XAPI parties to it also. So then we were doing 3 events a year instead of 2 events a year. But with the pandemic, we of course moved all of our events online. So we've now run 3 online downloads, and it's interesting, right? So we've got this fantastic, really, great community in-person vibe that transcends client relationships, transcends ATD chapters, it's just everybody. I mean, we've got corporate people, higher ed people, K-12 people, marketing people, like all sorts of people showing up to the download when it's in person, but only people who are local to us. Right. When we moved it online, we all of a sudden have this incredible nationwide, even
people from Tennessee,
right? Who would never fly up for a conference to Southeast Michigan for a day. And so we end up with this, this great speaker base, this great attendee base, and that's been really positive and wonderful. And now we want both. And so I think we'll run maybe 2 next year, 1 live and 1 online.
Amazing. It's going to be amazing. I cannot wait. I really enjoyed my time there at the download. So you mentioned, Megan, those both viewpoints of what brought you to where you are. You mentioned the people side of things. You mentioned your experience in your career. So as a L&D professional, and I love how specific you mentioned that Torrance Learning, what they do. You mentioned they make the content that goes into the LMS system. That's one of their major things they do. I like that. That's just one of many things, as my viewers know, as you all know, that can happen in the learning and development space. So in this space, Megan, what are some of the biggest hurdles that you've seen? Just what are some of the biggest hurdles that you've seen up until this point that you've overcome? And then what are some current hurdles or some current challenges that you see?
And are you thinking like challenges in my own career or challenges
in your own career? Let's just say in your own career.
Yeah, I think time, the laws of space and time are my biggest challenges. There's so much to learn and so many ways to get involved. And then I have a family who might like me to spend time with them, and I should maybe go to the gym once in a while and things like that, right? And so I think that picking and choose, right, we have this wealth of choice that makes it hard, and so you can pick a lot of different things or dive very deep into one thing, and so I know it sounds kind of like a false challenge. It's a fantastic challenge to have, right?
Oh, yeah, it is.
It's just there's so many different ways to apply what it is that we do, and so many ways to learn. So how do I handle it? I don't have much of a social life, so that's what I do. That's what I do.
You're doing a little bit right now. You're doing a little bit right now.
Today, Jay.
You're like, here we go, another one. You're socializing a little bit now. We're getting to talk, and I'm really enjoying it.
Exactly.
So you're definitely giving some great advice. Just some things that you've seen, your personal challenges. I think many of us as learning and development professionals, myself included, struggle with that same thing, time and space, right?
Yeah.
There's too little day and so much to do in a given day. So definitely.
And it's hard too, right? With the trajectory of our lives as people, right? So you start out early, and you've got a lot of friends, but you've got a lot of energy,
Yep.
and you're pouring yourself into whatever you can, and you're hungry for knowledge, and you're really excited. And then there's a point in your life, if you choose to have children, when like that is, kids are supremely time consuming. It's a
Definitely.
good thing they're cute, because they're
Supremely.
very, very time consuming. And so you need to like figure out ways to still move your career ahead while also doing those important family things, right? And how do you do that? That's the period in life when people think it's when the baby's born, when you don't get a lot of sleep. Actually, you don't get a lot of sleep for a lot of years.
Yeah.
Trying to juggle all that, and in many respects, the primary caregiver is often a woman, right? And so we may not see that the other women in our teams are doing this entire second job afterwards, right? And so that's really important to note. And then there's a period of time when our kids are kind of independent and they're off doing their things, and we may be driving them around, but we've got time in those gaps, and they go off to school or go off to work or go off and do their thing, and there's this resurgence in your ability to engage at work, right before your parents need a lot of your support.
Hmm.
So trying to balance all these things is tricky, and I recommend people kind of let that flow with the flow of their lives too.
Absolutely. And that can apply to anyone. That can
Mm-hmm.
apply to anyone, not just learning and
Absolutely.
development professionals. But I know in our space specifically, as you mentioned, there's so much going on. And I love how your you mentioned kind of the phases of things, especially for people with families.
Mm-hmm.
It's that's very helpful, very helpful. So thank you. I want to ask, you. You've mentioned a lot of things that you accomplish, a lot of things that you do. You provided some great insights. What do you truly love? What makes your heart sing about learning and development?
Oh boy, there's a lot of things that do,
Yeah. Is
right?
anything in particular just, that I love this part of it? For me, it's when I'm training someone and I see that learner get that aha moment. It like connects that epiphany. So what about you?
So one of our core values at Torrance Learning is pragmatic creativities, right? That the
Like that.
the beauty in an elegant, practical solution is so powerful. So I get really, really jazzed up when I see whether it's a classroom activity or an online activity, um, that's just so elegantly designed to structure the learning and meet a learner like right where they are in that moment with the right amount of challenge. And as much as I love fancy technology and cool stuff, I love the ones that are just simple. Like I'm walking through a thought process. It doesn't have to have a lot of bells and whistles. So
Absolutely.
that really gets me going.
I
Um,
love it.
the other thing that gets me going is a really great graph, like a graph or a chart or a piece of statistical analysis
Hmm.
on the learning program itself that can crystallize all of what we're hearing qualitatively in a really solid, defensible, quantitative way. And that gets me pretty excited too. I like my kind of like secret passion is
Hmm.
statistics and data.
Amazing. Amazing, amazing. That's good. That's very important. I know that one of the more recent kind of struggles for the learning development industry as a whole is showing return on investment for training departments. And I'm sure you know that just showing those numbers, those graphs, if you will, the statistics, showing those things and showing how those are applicable to what your employees or your learners, whoever they may be, are doing in their day to day, and seeing how it improved their lives.
Yeah.
So just putting that into numbers form. So that's really good that you said that, Megan. Um, so if if graphs and pragmatic creativity, which is really cool, by the way, if those are some things that really make your heart sing concerning learning and development, What's something that you dislike about learning and development?
Mm, let's see, what do I dislike? I could get myself in trouble here.
Hey, go
I
for it. This is a safe
am,
space. I won't judge.
um, so I get, so we have beautiful, especially in the e-learning space, right? We have beautiful tools, like really like lovely tools that allow us to do really fancy things. And um, sometimes we make learning experiences that are too clicky, too like click to see this and click to see that, and so I'm not a fan of that, or games that are too far from what I might actually be using the learning for, right? So for example, I'm never going to be asked on the job to answer in the form of a question, a
Mhm.
trivia, a piece of trivia.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask to be to do something, but I there are very few instances in which a Jeopardy game, as cool as they are,
Right.
is a good close transfer kind of activity. And I tend to, and maybe I'm just a pretty, boring and straightforward person, I tend to go with very near-term transfer kind of
Yes.
activities. So sometimes we have these tools that let us do all sorts of fancy schmancy things. And sometimes we get lots of pats on the back, and we get to feel very cool because we can make really fancy schmancy things,
Mhm.
but they're not as helpful to the learning process.
Yeah.
And that's when, too many of those, and that's where we have to really start working very hard to prove the ROI of what we're
Hmm.
doing,
Yep.
because it's a little less clear. So yeah, that's my biggest beef.
That's a good one. I've never thought about that. Well, I take that back. I have thought about it, but I've never seen it stated like that. You really stated it's the almost over gamification of
Mhm.
learning,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And
So,
interesting, it's interesting you say that. I was at a conference called Learning at Scale a couple of weeks ago, and there was a paper, an academic paper on the misuse of gamification.
yep.
And how it talked about how leaderboards and points and achievements can be counterproductive to learning, but also counterproductive to people and people's own well-being. And it was really interesting. It's me as a personal fan, or personal not fan. Personally, I am not a fan. Friday afternoon. Personally, I am not a fan of leaderboards. Um, and um, and that really drove that home for me. So, if you're on the bottom of the leaderboard with no chance to catch up, that's a really crummy place to be.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, I don't want to be 5,426 on a leaderboard. That like, or I don't want to be number 9 out of 10.
Yep. That's like me on all the games I play on Xbox,
Yeah,
on the Xbox console, number 5,000. It's like, why?
exactly. Exactly. So there are things there are things that translate from games really, really well. I love fantastic scenarios. I love realistic games, like
Mhm.
deep immersive um, uh, types of serious games and challenges, and I don't mind even making them a little bit fun.
Mhm.
But sometimes we overdo it.
Agreed. Definitely agreed. Um, so up until this point in your career, you're the Megan Torrance that I say we as in everyone who encounters you and works with you, befriends you, family. We all know you as the Megan Torrance today, right now. On your way here, I'm sure there were people that you looked up to or continue to look up to. So Megan, who are 3 people that you look up to or looked up to at least, in your journey in learning and development. And these three people don't necessarily have to be in this space. It can be anyone that you just looked up to during this journey that helped you.
Oh gosh, what a good question. What a good question. So one of I have two early leaders in my career who, before I was considered a learning and development person, yes, I was responsible for training and people, but I wasn't considered a learning and development person.
Right.
And so one of my very first professional managers out of school, his name was Mark Barbie, and he was one of these people who really was, he valued high performance. He respected people as individuals who had needs maybe outside of work. He demanded a lot at work. He gave great feedback and tons of coaching, like how to navigate political spaces at work and stuff. I mean, there's things, I mean, literally this man was the one who said, look, if you're going to cry, go to the bathroom and do it. And nobody sees you there. And it wasn't like, don't cry at work. It was like, look,
cry.
We all cry at work.
Right.
It happens when you do. Check yourself into the bathroom. It's a safe space where it's like, oh, that's a good tip. Right? And so people like that are really important in your early career. And he provided also that, and I never really knew that I needed it. Because you don't when you're in your early 20s, but like how to be a person at work. How to show up at work. And he's the person who said, you can't, we're in Manhattan, Megan, you can't leave your purse on the desk. Stuff like that. Right? Like, I'm like, oh, okay. Right. So really helpful, helpful people like that. One of my next leaders, Libby Barden, was just this epitome of grace and calmness as a leader. And she believed in people. She was technically brilliant, but didn't beat you over the head with it. In fact, what you really felt like when you were with Libby was that this was this kind of being this person who was just super comfortable with herself in a space. And now looking on it in retrospect, I was like, she was probably terrified half the time. And like, I watched her, I've watched her lay people off or announce there would be layoffs, right? I've watched her, she scooped me up one night. We were all working just killer hours. And our team was there, and it must have been like 6 or 6:30 at night one night, and she comes by and she just screams out to my entire team as we're all sitting there, and she says, "Hey everybody, I'm taking Megan to the mall shopping. Does anybody object?" And I'm like, but and they're like, no.
And
like,
not at all.
She's like, pack up your bags, we're going shopping. And she actually didn't take me shopping. She dropped me off at the mall and left me there. She just needed to get me out of the office. Everybody left immediately after me. They were on the next elevator down. I just didn't know it. It was hilarious. But it's people like that. She actually did. She even had me 1 year for my 5 like objectives for the year was to reduce the number of hours that I worked. Like, that can't be a thing. Like, how does the organization want me to do that? Like, she was that kind of leader.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, absolutely.
That is amazing. That's amazing. So, I mean, it's always good to have people along with us in the journey that coach us and walk us through. I myself had a good leader one of my first few leaders, actually my first 2 leaders in what I call my big boy jobs. When I started in the workforce as an adult, not necessarily when you're a teenager and you work at like the department store, but when I was an adult, they were really, really influential in me as a professional and as just a person overall. So I can definitely relate to that. So where should not people, L&D professionals specifically, where should we be looking, Megan? What do you think, just in your opinion, or based on the numbers? You may have looked at the numbers, the statistics. Based on the numbers, or in your opinion, of course, do you think L&D is headed? Where does it seem like we're going? the ship?
Well, I think what's interesting, right? So let's talk about numbers, right?
Hmm.
Well, when I started in university 35 years ago, 30 years ago, ish, right?
Ish, something around.
Um, uh, you know, I dabbled with advertising and public relations for a while, right? And advertising was a dark art. You didn't ask how it worked. You couldn't prove that it worked. You trusted that it worked. Of course it worked. Um,
Yes.
and now marketing is a highly data-driven enterprise, right? From every interaction to the decisions that are being made to the scenario planning and business modeling that goes into marketing. And I really feel like learning and development has a lot to learn from that. And so that's a space to spend some time with. There are almost always sessions at conferences. Danielle Wallace is always good for a session on like what L&D people can learn from marketers. And that's a good place to go, because when you think about it, marketing is all about changing behavior and getting people to do something that they may not have been previously doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what marketing does. Often in a shorter time span than most learning and development programs, but I think there's a lot that we can learn from them, both from the science of behavior change, and there's also a lot of behavioral economics in there, and that's a fun place to spend some time. So spend some time with marketing and behavioral economics, and you will become a different learning and development professional. So that's a great space to be in. The other nice thing about the marketing folks is that they're producing the consumer grade learning experiences that our learners are starting to expect from us, right? Used to be that the L&D team had the fanciest technology that an employee might see, and not anymore. And so our learning experiences need to be that consumer grade, marketing grade, meet that expectation where we can. So there's two things we can get from marketing. Behavioral economics is a super fun place to start dabbling, right? Like I said at the beginning, you can't go in all these places, but that's another interesting place. The book Nudge by Cass and Sunstein is Cass Sunstein and Richard Thaler is a great, just look into how people make decisions and how we can help suggest a proper course of action, both explicitly as well as implicitly, right? So explicitly like an app notification or something, implicitly by just the set of available choices and what we mark as a default for you, right? That influences behavior. And that's really interesting. And it's a super subtle move on the part of learning and development professionals. The other side, right? There is what are universities doing? What are mega universities doing? What are we doing in some of these large scale global learning platforms and apps? And what can we be learning from what they're seeing with large scale data and the ability to do deep analysis on that, what works for us in our regular day-to-day jobs. So that statistical analysis and just that look at learning in very large scale environments, what that can do for us is super fun too.
Amazing. That's now I know what to be on the lookout for as a fellow L&D professional. Or at least I know some things to look out for. So I really,
but
really
you have kids,
that.
right?
I do have kids.
All right. So drag your kids to a children's science museum. Children's science museum, any science museums are fantastically full of hands-on learning experiences. And I'm a big believer in instructional designer. We call it at Torrance-CEO, we say instructional designers ruin everything. We approach the world differently. We see things through our lens of learning and performance development. Go to a children's science museum and just sit back and take in all that they're intentionally doing to basically, it's like slipping broccoli into the pizza and the kids
Yep.
don't know it, right?
Yep.
It's like there's tons of learning and it's fantastic and fun, and kids are screaming and shoving to get their hands on it. That's what we should be building into our learning experience. People should be shoving each other aside to get their hands on what we're building. So anything we can do to, maybe not the screaming part, maybe not the actual physical violence part, but standing in line patiently, dutifully to get to our learning experiences. And science museums are doing something right there.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So we're coming up on the end of our questions. Just have 3 more questions.
Okay.
So the first one is, what's next for Megan Torrance and Torrance Learning? What's next? What events you have coming up? Any book coming out soon, or
Book coming out
book,
soon.
or
Yeah, so book coming out soon. I'm working on it right now. So data and analytics for instructional designers.
no,
So no heavy math, but starting to have that appreciation for the data. We've been hosting the XAPI cohort for 7 years now, and we're transitioning that to the Learning Guild. And so I'm actually really excited. So we're supporting the Learning Guild and picking up that huge 4,000 people strong learning community around XAPI. So that's really exciting. Yeah, and just on a personal fun note for what's next for Torrance Learning is we're bringing the whole team together for a retreat, and it'll be really exciting.
Nice.
We're doing
That's
that in a couple
amazing.
months. So that's heavy on my mind. Lots of planning, lots of fun stuff.
Absolutely. That's going to be amazing. So great things, big things coming. I will definitely link the Torrance Learning website in the notes. And if you want, Megan, when the time comes for the book to release, if you just let me know, I'm sure you might send an email to everyone or whatever the method you would like to use, but I will definitely also put that link in the description as well, just so viewers can see it.
Very cool.
So,
actually, that'll be an ATD press book. So
nice.
People who are ATD full national chapter or national level managers, members, will be able to download a free copy. So
nice.
you get 1 book a year, and so they could download that.
That's gonna be really good. Very, very good. All right. Second to last question, Megan.
All right, bring it.
All right. Where can people connect with you online? You thought it was going to be a tough question.
I thought it was going to be
hard. I know. The last one's going to be a nice one. I think you'll enjoy it. But where can people connect with you? Where can they find you? How can they get in contact?
Email is a great place to get me. So info@torrancelearning.com is a great place to get me. LinkedIn is a good place.
I need to add you on there, actually.
Yeah. And I tend not to do a lot on Twitter, so that's not the super best place to get me, but
okay.
Yeah, definitely online or at conferences. So I'm out at learning conferences, ATD conferences and stuff like that. So the face-to-face also works.
Absolutely. And she's very warm and inviting you all for my viewers. So email her, even her emails are inviting. So reach out through email and you'll still get the same great experience. All right. Final question, Megan, final question.
Okay.
So if you woke up tomorrow and everything, and this is everything. If you woke up tomorrow and all of your previous work had disappeared, everything, and you can no longer do what you do now, but you could leave one piece of insight for learning and development professionals. That's it, just one piece. What would that piece of insight be?
I was having a conversation the other day, Jay, and it was interesting. It was the crux of it, because you said just one piece. The one piece is
everything else is gone.
What sets something that's unique about the human experience. We are constant learners. And I say unique, there's lots of animals who learn all the time too. But human beings, we learn all the time. Whether we call you a lifelong learner or not, everybody's learning all the time. Sometimes you're just learning like what TV show you like, or
Yep.
how to, a better way of opening a jar of pickles that's stuck, right? Or how to roll start your car or anything, right? We're constantly learning and constantly sharing. And at its heart, right, what we try to do is connect into that passion for learning and passion for doing better, right? People want to do better at what they do, even if that better is simply to make it easier because they don't feel like making life so hard. So
Yeah.
we can figure out how to tap into that passion for learning. I think that's really the gist of what we do.
That is amazing. Thank you so much, Megan. I appreciate you taking the time out to talk with me today. For my viewers, please watch this, rewatch it. I know I took notes as she was talking because look, I'm gonna tell my wife, look, we need to order Nudge from Amazon now, like today. She's gonna be like, hey, what? Just don't worry about it. Just order it. So, man, thank you so much again. And to everybody, again, my name is Jay Bryan, and I've been talking with Megan Torrance of Torrance Learning. And with that, I will let you all get back to your day. Peace.